Good afternoon. It's Shane here. I wanted to, with BaerBronco. It's my my YouTube channel. Anyways, I wanted to touch base a few weeks ago, several weeks ago, I should say. I had my 1971 F100 heavy duty special for sale on Bring a Trailer. Also had done a big build series on that truck. It had a battle-born brake system. Anyways, I won't get into too many details with that truck. I ended up selling it. The new owner is an awesome guy, and I'm really excited for him to enjoy that truck. I hated to see it go. I really was torn about selling it, but it helps fund some of my other projects. That being said, one of the YouTube subscribers asked me a question on how the heck I know so much about these trucks and how I'm able just to rattle off some of the things I know about them. So I wanted to do a quick history in regards to that. So when I was about 12 years old, it's a long story, so you're gonna have to bear with me, and I'm not much into rambling, and I'm not a very good YouTube guy, but as in I don't spend the time to edit and whatnot. I'd rather work on the vehicles than do that. But my next build series is going to be definitely more of a hands-on how-to on certain aspects of that battle-born kit, as well as coyote swapping. Man, can't get that out. Anywho, so when I was about 12 years old, I had a friend of mine that invited me down to Pismo Beach, Oceano Dunes. And it was a many-hour drive, but we went down there and had a blast. And had so much fun. In fact, it left a lasting impression on me to maybe dig into this and learn some more about it. We just went down with some four-wheelers and some trucks, one of which happens to be right behind me under this cover. It's a 1979 Bronco, and that's one of the projects I'll be covering here. But to get more into the detail of that trip, it really left an impression on me that this was something I wanted to continue doing and to learn more about. My friend's dad had several of these old 1970s era Ford trucks. He had an old Blazer as well, K5 Blazer. And we just had fun hitting the sand dunes and just going through doing the four-wheeling and having a blast. My dad was not a gearhead. I consider myself to be a gearhead enthusiast, as in I've rebuilt a bunch of vehicles. So after I was 12, when I got to be about 13, 14 years old, I picked up a used four-wheeler, a Yamaha Warrior, for just like $100. It wasn't running. I tinkered with that and figured out how to get it running again, and just started learning. Just started picking things up. When I was in high school, as I started to learn how to drive, my passion for anything mechanical went from to those four-wheelers and dirt bikes to vehicles. I had an 87 Chevy 1500 pickup, and that was one of the first vehicles I learned on. It had the throttle body fuel injection from 87. It had a Chevy 350 motor in it, and it was just a good little pickup. There were several things I didn't care about that the truck had, like the auto locking hubs that just had all kinds of issues. So one of the first things I did was swap out the hubs for some manual locking worn hubs, and that kind of again got me into more doing some differential stuff, which I had never done before. I took some auto shop in high school, but kind of my resume in regards to what I've rebuilt, things I've done with vehicles. Well, while I was in high school, I also had a 66 Mustang. It was a coupe. It was not a fastback. It was an awesome car. Learned a lot about it. I think I paid like $2,000 for it. Wasn't running. had a little bit of rust, not a lot of rust, but just a little bit of rust in the floorboard. And I learned on that. It had a 289 Ford V8. I pulled that out with a C4 behind it, automatic transmission. I pulled all that out and started. That was my first motor I ever rebuilt by myself. Again, I had an auto shop teacher who was patient with me and whatnot, but he only had limited knowledge, but he did help me. And I bought a bunch of Haynes manuals and just started learning about these trucks and cars, the V8 motors to be precise, the Ford ones. I had a lot of luck rebuilding that motor. I did it myself, minus sending it off to the machine shop to get everything honed and ready for me to put it back together. It was bored 30 over, and that motor ran great. I had a lot of trial and error with it. When I first put it together, I didn't quite understand how to adjust the valves, and couldn't get it started and couldn't figure out what was going on. It had no compression because I had adjusted the valves incorrectly. And anyways, long story short, I learned on that motor a lot. While I was still in high school, I picked up this 1985 Ford Mustang. It was a police interceptor. It was a California Highway Patrol car. It was set up. It had a Holley carburetor from the factory. It had a high output 302 in it. It had a 5-speed manual transmission. I pulled all that out and put it in my 66 Mustang. And even though the 289 and the C4 ran great, I wanted some more power, and I didn't have a lot of money, so I had to get creative. This police interceptor was an okay car and was really not in the best of shape, but the motor and transmission were in great shape. So I threw those in and learned how to convert automatic vehicles to stick shift. Lived in a wrecking yard picking up a pull and pick place, picking up parts that I needed for that Mustang, and was able to put it together, and that thing was an awesome vehicle. Sadly, I ended up selling it. About the time I was about 19 years old, I was preparing to make some big changes in my life, and anyways, long story short, I ended up selling it, and it helped fund my first little townhome I bought, and some of the other projects I continued with. Anywho, the truck behind me, it's a 1979 Bronco. I've had this Bronco now for about 27 years. As I mentioned earlier, when I was 12, this Bronco was in the sand dunes with me. It was my friend's dad's Bronco. I don't know a ton of the history of how long he had it, but this was in the 80s. So it was, I would say, roughly new when he got it. I don't know if he bought it new. Again, I don't know the full story of it. But back in 96, 97, my friend had acquired this truck from his dad and wanted to sell it. And I immediately jumped on it and bought it, and I've never looked back. My wife and I have fantastic memories of this Bronco, going camping, running up and down the sand dunes in Oregon and California. I've essentially grown up in the western United States, so that's pretty much all I know when it comes to off-roading and that. But so kind of my resume. I've never been certified as a mechanic. Everything I've learned, I've done it either by watching somebody do it, self-teaching, reading Haynes manuals, studying engines, and just understanding how everything works in a vehicle. I've rebuilt Chevy pickups. One of my favorite series is the 67 to 72 Chevy pickups. I've done a couple of those where I've restored them and helped some buddies do them and work on them and upgrade them and so forth. I've never personally owned one myself. I had that 87 Chevy I mentioned. I'm essentially a guru for anything mid 80s and older that's American. I like Chevys. I've never really built any Dodge stuff, but Ford's kind of where I pinpointed, and I'll explain why. Essentially, when I was 12, I mentioned I went out to the sand dunes with this Bronco and had just fond memories running up and down, having a blast. And so when I did acquire it in 97, 96, 97, right around there, I started working on it, tinkering with it. It had a Ford 400. It had an NP 435, 4-speed. So it's essentially a 3-speed granny gear. Granny gear is kind of pointless when you're running on the highways. It had an MP 205 part-time 4-wheel drive transfer case. So MP stands for new process. Anywho, originally this Bronco came with a C6 automatic transmission. But when I acquired it in the late 90s, it had a 4-speed. They had a lot of troubles with the C6 in here handling the power. Now, granted, you might say, wait, a Ford 400, which is a 351 modified motor, has a lot of power. Well, this one did. They had the motor rebuilt as a short block. They put an awesome cam in it. They had put some great heads on that were ported and whatnot, and it really moved. As long as you kept the RPMs higher, it did everything that a Ford 460 would do, which was incredible. It was awesome. Quick history on this: it has a Dana 44 up front, factory. It has a Detroit locker. It has a Ford 9-inch, which was factory, with a Detroit locker. That's how it came when I acquired it. Shortly, I want to say 3 or 4 years after I had this, and my wife and I had a great time going camping and whatnot, we had a child at that time, and I got a decent tax return around then, and I decided I want to put the money into this truck, this Bronco. So I dropped a Ford 460 in it, and it wasn't just any 460. I had done my homework. I bought it out of a 72 Lincoln. I believe it was 71 or 72 Lincoln. And this Ford 460 was a great motor because it had the dove heads on it, DOVE, or D0VE, if I guess you want to be precise, which are closed chambered heads, pre-emissions. They were known for having detonation issues and whatnot. Long story short, I got that motor, compression tested it, everything was fine. The heads were in dire need of some new valve seats and so forth. So I went through, took the heads to a machine shop that I trusted, and they kind of rebuilt the heads, put some new valves in, machined them, and did a little bit of port and polish on them. This was done in Seattle area by a Ford Performance. I think it was Parker's. Parker's is what the name is. They did a fantastic job on the heads, and this was a really long time ago. I'm trying to remember exactly when, but I want to say it would have been around 2000, 2001. And put the motor all back together. I ran an Edelbrock cam in it that had the power band or power range for the most power was between 1500 and 6500 RPMs. I did a matching Ford Performer air gap intake on it, and it had a Holley Truck Avenger 870 CFM carburetor. All this I acquired over a little bit of time, put it all together, put it in this thing. It obviously bolted right up to that new Process 435 transmission, 4-speed. I did go with L&L flywheel and clutch system from them, along with their heavy-duty rubberized motor mounts. I did all that work, and the Bronco was awesome. It really woke it up as far as low-range torque and quick response. When I did all that work, though, it started moving to the next weak link. And what I mean by that is you put quite a bit more power in a vehicle, you're gonna break something. It's gonna go to the next weakest link. For me, it was front hubs. I started shattering the manual locking hubs. They were just it was just crushing them. Every time I'd gun it, it would snap them. And so I went with Rugged Ridge nodular iron hubs. Haven't had a problem since. However, it went to the next weakest link, which that ended up being my U-joints on the factory axles on the Ford Dana 44. And so I went with chromoly axles with it wasn't, I don't think Yukon was around back then, but I can't remember which U-joints I went with. I think they were called like super U-joints. Anyways, it doesn't matter. So the front end had new bearings, same Detroit locker, same 350 gears from the factory, chromoly axles, new U-joints, all new bearings, and nodular iron hubs, manual locking hubs. While I was in there, I was reading a lot about upgrading the brakes, so I went with just that. It's still Ford factory calipers, but I did drilled slotted rotors. As I mentioned, all new bearings and seals. The calipers I got, I want to say they were Lincoln calipers. They were a little bit larger diameter. Used the same brake pads and whatnot. Put that all in, stainless steel brake lines, stainless steel brake hoses. Put it all together, and I went with you can see right there, the F350 1-ton dual diaphragm brake booster. And that was a factory item that bolts right up to the Bronco. You just have to make sure what year you get, because it changes the style of brake arm. So as your brake pedal compresses, it hits that arm and uses the vacuum diaphragm to stop your vehicle, or assist stopping your vehicle. I went with a matching F350 master cylinder, and then went with F350 wheel cylinders for the back drum brakes. It made a huge difference in stopping power, and I've never looked back. One thing I did do, as I found the next weakest link after the front end was done, I started wearing out my driveline on the front. Put all new Dana Spicer stuff back in, went with 1350 series U-joints and billet steel yokes for the Dana 44, as well as the new Process 205 transfer case. And while I was in it, and this was all the drive lines I had done, I had them built by Tom Wood's 4x4 shafts out of Ogden, Utah. They have been a fantastic company to work with, and I've really enjoyed all the drive lines that they've built for me, which have been several now. So it had a 1350, essentially a 3/4 ton drive line up front. I went with the same style in the rear, billet steel 1350 series yoke for the Ford 9-inch. And I went with a flange on that back of the new Process 205 transfer case. The reason why I went with a flange is I just wanted the ruggedness and the heavy-duty setup in a dual cardan U-joint setup drive shaft. As you know, Ford Broncos have a very short wheelbase, and they can rattle and do all kinds of things and vibrate if you don't get those drive lines just right. So, had the drive lines done, and of course, the next weakest link showed up, and that happened to be my Ford 9-inch, which is not known to have any issues. However, I was on pavement. I had the Ford 460, then the MP 435. I was in second gear, rolling about 1,800 RPMs, and maybe moving 15 miles an hour. And I had my dad in the passenger seat, and he wanted to feel the pickup of the new motor. So I gunned it, and I was in two-wheel drive, and I didn't break free. I had, 33 1250 15-inch tires, great tread on them, and I hooked up, and that was a problem. I hooked up so well that I blew apart my third member on my Ford 9-inch, and I couldn't move. Like, it wouldn't budge. I made a loud bang noise, and the tires locked up in the rear, and it just stopped. Luckily, I was right around the corner from the house. Yeah, and got it home. It was a bear to get it home, but we got it home. I pulled that Ford 9-inch apart and found out that the bearing housing rings that go around the bearing on the actual third member itself. The third member is, a lot of people refer to it a third member or a pumpkin. It's the front guts of the Ford 9-inch. It's essentially the brain of the Ford 9-inch. That's where the Detroit locker is, with all the bearings and the ring gear and pinion gear that spin from the driveline. And it was shattered, and those pieces of cast iron got stuck in the gears, and that's why I couldn't move the vehicle. I went with the Stata, I don't know how to pronounce that. A Stata nodular iron third member from Summit Racing. All new bearings, same 350 gears. I had to get new 350 gears because I had damaged the other one so bad with all the cast iron pieces floating around in that rear end. I went ahead and did chrome ollie axles while I had it all apart, and upgraded to a TSM manufacturing Ford 9-inch disc brake conversion, which uses the I think it's like 79 to 85 Chevrolet or Cadillac Eldorado calipers, which it has the provision for the emergency brake lever. Got that installed. That just helped the stopping power that much more. And that was it. I didn't find another weak link, thankfully. But I have ran this thing hard. I have been to sand dunes, as I said, all up and down the West Coast. Glamis, Pismo Beach, which is also known as Oceano Dunes, Florence, and all the Winchester Bay area of Oregon. And I've ran this thing and had a blast. And as you can see, it's in pieces. So that's kind of the basis and the inspiration for the knowledge that I have in doing these things. Now, with that 1971 F100 that I converted to four-wheel drive with a battle-born brake system, and put Super Duty axles out of a 2006 F250, which I wanted the big brakes. There was a lot of reasons why I wanted that. I also wanted the newer bolt pattern of 8x170, which I have come to regret a little bit. I still love the Super Duty axles, but on my next project, which is, I'll show you here in a little bit. I'm not sure if I'll cover it with this video or not, because I kind of wanted to answer the gentleman's question in regards to my history and how I know so much about this stuff. Like I said, in the late 90s when I bought this thing, I learned so much about these Ford trucks that I kind of decided to specialize. So I stopped doing some Chevy trucks that I was doing. I stopped working on the Mustang. I had 3 or 4 different Mustangs over the years. 66, I had a 66 Fastback, an 85 Police Interceptor. I had a 1990 and a 1991 Fox body. Had a blast with all those. But I've kind of moved to this because once you find your kind of your niche, your thing that you specialize in, it's a lot easier to buy parts for and everything because you already know everything about them. So that's kind of what I focused on. But in that 1971 F100, I decided to go very different and went with a Coyote swap. I did that for several reasons. One, I wanted an automatic, and it was an automatic previously with a Ford 360 motor, with a C6. I only had a married transfer case. I didn't have a divorce. So married is essentially bolted directly to the transmission. Divorced transfer case would not be bolted to the transmission. So I couldn't find a divorce transfer case for that thing. And because I couldn't find it, I decided to go married, because I had a married new process 205 transfer case, bolted it all up to a 6R80. And you guys saw that build process. I didn't get into details of how to, but I did enough that you got to see kind of what it takes to do it. And because I specialized, that's just what I wanted to stick with. But this Bronco here, that Ford 460, was an awesome motor, and I loved it. But my wife really wanted me to get this thing back to an automatic like it was from the factory. And so I did some research into what I wanted to do that. And I thought about keeping the Ford 460, but decided a different route. As I've mentioned, I live in kind of the Pacific Northwest, but essentially central Washington. And the gas prices and taxes here for the gas is just off the charts. It's ridiculous. I decided that I wanted to do more daily driving with this Bronco like I used to. So I am going with a Gen 3 Coyote out of a 2018 Mustang for a couple of reasons. One, it's easy to get an automatic that works with that new process 205 to be married with that 10R80 using that advanced adapters plate, which I'll show you here in a minute. And that gets me my automatic. It's easy to do the manual gear shifting for the four-wheel drive with that setup with a bracket that I fabricate. And then also I get the gas mileage. So with a 2018 Gen 3 Mustang Coyote in this Bronco, which is not that heavy, with the original, Dana 44 Ford 9-inch, I'll probably average at least 19 miles to the gallon with this, which is awesome for a V8 with good power. So I decided to scrap the 460. The 460 is actually going in a different vehicle of mine, the crew cab project, so that I can do more daily driving with this Bronco, so my wife can use it when she wants. Just the list goes on of why I decided to go with a Coyote swap for this. And I'm really excited. So I just finished pressure washing it. And you can see it used to have the factory air conditioning. It's going to get a block off plate that goes here from Fat Fender Garage. And I'll have a bulkhead set up here for the heater hoses and the air conditioning hoses to go into the new Restomod Air heating and air conditioning system. I just finished pressure washing, kind of getting some of the sand. It's years and years of sand, and I'll probably still be knocking sand down for the next 10 years. I don't intend on running this in the sand dunes anymore. It'll be mainly daily driving, just having fun with, making some new memories with the kids, stuff like that. It's got a I did it new steering column, convert it back to automatic. It had the automatic steering column in from the factory, but the gentleman, my friend's dad, that converted this to manual, took it all apart, and I couldn't find all the pieces to make it whole again. So I went with an I Did It column, and that's a Borgenson steering shaft. It's a double DD on one end and 3/4 spline, 36 spline ports to fit. This is a brand new. It's not a redhead. It's a Napa quality premium gearbox, steering gearbox. My last one froze up real bad, and I didn't want to rebuild it for this project. I ended up keeping it for another project that I have. Anyway, so just kind of touch base on what's going on here. It's going to get a Ford Coyote. The mounting plates are going to go here for their Fat Fender Garage mounting plates. And anyways, motor's going to get dropped in here probably in the next week or two. And I'll touch base with you on that. But this is my inspiration of why I've continued doing what I'm doing. How I know so much about these trucks is when you have, several of these 1970s era Ford vehicles, it's easy to kind of specialize in them. Anywho, I won't show you the interior just yet. I want to, just to give you a video quickly in regards to my background and why I chose this route and things like that. So I'll show you a couple other things. I know I touched base in the last video of my 1971 truck, but here's my son's 73 Ford F100 that we're going to be rebuilding together when he gets home this spring in the next couple of months. It's going to stay the way it is, but it's got a 429 true Ford Cobra Jet out of a Ford Torino that's going to be dropped in there. It was already in there, but I pulled it out to do a top end rebuild on it, and just to kind of go through and do some painting and cleaning up. It also has an MP 435 transmission, which is going back in it. The difference is that transmission is very unique. The weak link on the new process 435 transmissions is definitely the input shaft. It's a small input shaft. I want to say 1 1/16", 10 spline. It's just a tiny little input shaft, and it breaks. I never broke it on my 79 Bronco, so I didn't have any issues with that. But I did find some twisting and some hairline cracks on the input shaft. So I did some research and found that you can do a 1 3/8 input shaft out of an F600 or F400, 500, 600 series, like school bus that had the 4-speed transmission, the MP 435. They have just a massive input shaft. You have to do some machining on it and whatnot to get it down to fit, and then you get a 1 3/8 clutch plate, clutch fork and all that. You have to modify just a few other things, but it bolts right up and goes in there. So that's what that 1973 F100 truck for my sons, that's the one that's going to be running the sand dunes. On my YouTube channel, there's another video with a yellow 1973 F100. That's my sand runner. So it officially replaced the 1979 Bronco that I used to run in the sand, because I'm going back to more of a daily driver, camping vehicle, family vehicle, and all that with the Bronco. So that's that truck kind of replaced the Bronco in the sand. Then my son wants to do it as well with this 73 silver F100. Anyways, I've been rambling a lot. Hopefully you understand a little bit of the history of where I've learned this stuff, where my passion comes from, and just hopefully that helps answer some of the questions on how I know so much about this stuff. Essentially, it's because I've been tinkering with it for many, many years. Like I said, none of my parents were gearheads. I just learned on my own. It's been an awesome experience. I've had a lot of fun doing it, and it's been a blessing for me and my family just to be able to do this and tinker and teach my sons how to do it as well. So Gen 3 Coyote going in this 79 Bronco. The transmission, here's the thing. In order to have a married transfer case for the 4-wheel drive, I had to get a matching 10R80 out of a F-150 with matching mileage. So the 2018 Mustang Gen 3 Coyote that's going in here had 8,900 and change miles on it when the gentleman wrecked it. It was a side impact. That's the other thing I look for whenever I'm trying to find a donor vehicle for a Coyote swap. I'm looking for something that's been hit on the side, back, anywhere but the front end of the vehicle, just to make sure there's no damage to the motor, no cracks on the case or anything like that. This Mustang didn't. It was hit on the side. This motor should be awesome. Super low mileage. I ended up finding in Spokane a 2018 F-150 10R80 transmission. and it only had 10,000, like 10,500 miles on it. So transmission was essentially, it's just going to bolt right up to the Gen 3 Mustang motor. And I have a Gen 3 control pack from Ford Racing. That's going to be controlling the transmission and the motor. And it's going to go right into this Bronco. And I'm just super excited about it. I do have a couple more Coyote swaps, motors and transmissions that are going to go for other projects. And I'll touch base with you all about those projects later. One of which is another 72 bump side, a lot like the 1971 F100 that I sold recently. It's gonna be my next project. It's all white. Its nickname is Lucky. I always have a nickname for my vehicles. Bronco is just the Bronco. My wife. It does have a nickname though. My wife calls it the Firstborn because we had it way before we had our first child. Anyways, so I did want to show you kind of the advanced adapters plate that works with the 6R80 or 10R80 transmissions. Advanced adapter has them for all kinds of motors and transmission types. Anyways, they just don't do any of the milling that's required for these conversions. So real quick, so this is an advanced adapter 6R80 plate that goes to an Atlas 4x4 transfer case. This is the stock form. This is what it looks like when you get it. This is the side that mounts to the 6R80 or 10R80. And then this is the side that mounts to the either New Process 205 or you can use it for an Atlas transfer case. Anyways, in order for the manual transfer case shifter, you have to do some milling here. And I haven't done any sanding or anything. I just cut this yesterday. So it just has a groove that's cut out right here. So for the 4x4 shifter, it can go back and forth right here. There's a little rod that moves up and down. And then there's a spot right down here you have to mill, kind of clean up. In order for, there's a round nut, an adjusting nut for the transfer case that holds the shafts and gears all in. Anyways, in order for that to slide in. That's essentially all you have to do for this. It's a pretty simple setup. I've never seen anyone do it. I know people have done it, but no one's ever really taught how to do it. You can do it a number of ways. You can have a machine shop do that work. Easiest way for me was to get an actual gasket, a New Process 205 gasket that separates from the transmission to the transfer case, and it has a notch out of the gasket that shows you, once you line up all the holes on this adapter plate, it shows you where the notch needs to be and how you have to cut that out. And so that's how I knew where the shift armor went. So just simple things like that. You just learn and you pick up as you go. I wish people would show a little bit more hands-on, and maybe it's kind of their own proprietary stuff that they want to hold on to. I don't mind sharing. So if you guys have any other questions about kind of my background, how I have a passion for this stuff, how I learned all this stuff, whatever, go ahead and shoot out some questions for me. I'll do my best to answer them. I wish I had a little bit more time to do these videos. I'd rather do the work than spend the time doing the videos. So please bear with me. I'm not big into video editing or doing anything like that because I want to take the time to do the work instead of all that other mumbo jumbo, as I call it. And if you do that, that's great. Awesome. I appreciate it. I love YouTube. It's a great platform. I just don't have a ton of time to do that kind of stuff with all the projects I have and that I want to get done with these vehicles. So in the next few weeks, I'll be showing you the motor dropping in, doing a video on that, the mounting plates for the fat fender garage setup. the plate here for the block off plate for the air conditioning, and I might even do some Raptor liner. I was thinking about doing some Raptor liner. I'm not 100% what I'm going to do, but I want to clean up this firewall just a little bit. It's got a lot of black paint right through here that's been sprayed on over many years, and it's still holding up pretty good, but I need to make some changes here, and I'm not 100%. Before I drop the motor in, I want to make sure that's done and done right. So anyways, I'll try and capture whatever videos I can in regards to this, and show you guys and get them posted on YouTube soon. See right over there is my new Process 205 that just came out of this Bronco with that MP435 transmission. I have 2 of those transmissions I'm going to be selling. It includes the adapter plate that goes to the transfer case as well. So if anyone's interested in any of those, shoot me a shout, give me a shout out. I also have an MP435 in a 1969 Ford bump side frame that was designed for a divorced transfer case and has the shifting arm bracket with it as well. So if anyone needs any of that stuff, just give me a shout out. I don't know about shipping. I know they're pretty heavy. They're a couple 100 pounds, and they'll be a pain to box up. But if someone's willing to meet me somewhere, I can take them to someone, or we can figure it out. But anyways, I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. I hope this video helped answer some of the questions of how I know so much about this stuff. I don't consider myself an expert, but I do consider myself a very knee-deep enthusiast for this kind of stuff. I do know my stuff. I've been very proficient with wiring. That is essentially my profession, and that's how I learned how to do all these electrical side of things with these conversions. Anyways, all the best. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Bye.